I watched as a mother eagle made the impossible choice to push her runt into the abyss, a decision dictated by the harsh laws of nature that I simply couldn't accept. When I found him shivering on a ledge of jagged rock, he was nothing more than a heartbeat wrapped in translucent
Hang in
skin,
there, little one.
looking more like a
I'll get you warm.
prehistoric lizard than the king of the sky he was born to be. I rushed him to a specialist, but the doctor's heavy sigh felt like a death sentence, as he claimed a bird this weak would never survive the night, let alone touch the clouds. But I chose to fight for him, spending the next 3 months under the constant orange glow of a heat lamp, feeding him every hour with a heated pipette, while the world outside remained cold and indifferent. We lived through the lizard phase together, a long stretch of weeks where he was just a pink, featherless spark of life, but I stayed awake through the midnight storms just to hear the rhythm of his breath. As the seasons shifted, I watched with a father's pride as the first black quills began to pierce his skin, transforming his awkward, piebald body into something magnificent. He would spend hours perched on my windowsill, his amber eyes fixed on the distant blue peaks with a longing so deep it was almost painful to witness. I began to realize that I wasn't just saving a bird, I was raising a spirit that was never meant to be grounded, a creature whose soul was tethered to the infinite horizon. We practiced his grip on heavy oak branches, and I felt the incredible power developing in his obsidian talons as they began to splinter solid wood under the weight of his growing ambition. I had to wear thick leather welding gloves just to hold him, feeling the groan of the material as his massive wings began to beat against the air of my living room, preparing for a destiny he didn't yet understand. The weight of him on my arm was a constant reminder of how far we had come, from a shivering runt on a cold rock to a predator that commanded respect with a single look. Every night he would tuck his head under my arm, seeking the warmth of the only family he had ever known, unaware that our time together was drawing to a close. The morning we hiked to the summit was the quietest moment of my life, a heavy silence hanging over the peak as I prepared to return a piece of my soul to the wind. I could feel his heart racing against my arm, a rapid, powerful rhythm that mirrored my own fear of letting him go into a world that had once rejected him. When I finally tossed him into the high-altitude updraft, my heart fell into the same abyss where I first found him, watching him shrink into a tiny golden speck against the infinite blue. I stood there for what felt like hours, staring at the empty sky, wondering if he would survive the vastness, or if I had made a mistake by letting him fly. I turned to walk away, already feeling the crushing weight of an empty house, but the sudden, violent rush of air behind me told me the story wasn't over. A massive shadow swept across the rocks, and the heavy, powerful thump of his landing nearly knocked me to the ground, the force of his presence shaking the very earth beneath my boots. He didn't come back because he was hungry or afraid. He came back because he chose me, tucking his massive beak against my neck in a gesture of loyalty that defied every law of the wild. He was finally a king, but he remembered the hand that kept him warm when the world had turned his back, proving that the strongest bonds are not built in the light, but in the struggle. I realized then that while his mother had pushed him to save the nest, I had saved him to show him the world, and in return he had shown me the true meaning of devotion. We stood together on that peak for a long time, a man and a king, bound by a story that began in an abyss and ended in the clouds. Subscribe to see more incredible animal transformations and the bonds that change us forever.